The fifth salient feature of Indian Constitution is parliamentary form of government. Before knowing this, how India opted for this parliamentary form of government, the basic part is to know about the forms of government. There are two forms of government. One is parliamentary form of government and other is presidential form of government. If you get the difference between these two forms of government, and you will get the reason why India opted for parliamentary form. So in case of parliamentary form, as you all know that there are three organs of government. One is executive, one is legislature, and other one is judiciary. And there is a strict separation of powers between all of this. So in this legislature, executive, and judiciary, what we call as parliament here, the legislative, and because judiciary is integrated and independent form of independent organ of the government, but in case of legislature and executive, in case of parliamentary form of government, there is a coordination and cooperation between the legislature and executive, because whatever the activities they do, whatever the decision they take in the parliament, there has to be coordination and cooperation between legislature and executive. The executives are collectively responsible for their decisions which has to be taken in the parliament, or they are collectively responsible to the legislature regarding their decisions or whatever the governance they are going to make. So in this there is a proper coordination and cooperation. But in case of presidential form of government, the executive need not to be responsible for the legislature. The executive is independent of the legislature. He can take his own activities, or he can take his own decision, he can make his own activities without bringing notice to the legislature. That means not to be responsible for the legislature. So in India opted for parliamentary form of government because the cooperation and the coordination is most required in our parliament, because the collective responsibility as executive what they take, and collectively responsible for the legislature makes more things simpler in case of India. So India went for parliamentary form of government. But in case of this parliamentary form of government, the executives who take a major part, who are called as the powerful part of the in bringing laws and rules and laws and regulations. Here the parliamentary form of government talks about the executives. In executive there are two types. One is real executive and one is nominal executive. Here the real executives is the people who are elected, the persons who are elected by the people, and the nominal executives are the persons who are nominated by the representatives of the people. Here the nominal executives includes governors, presidents, governors in case of states, and presidents in case of country. The real executive means the people who have been directly elected by the people. Here the presence of both nominal and executive will be there in the parliamentary form of government. So to quote a difference between real executive and nominal executive are called as the dignified. If president is called as nominal executive, he is a dignified part of the executive, means he acts according to the advice given by the real executive. The real executive means the prime minister in case of center or chief minister in case of state. So they form the real executive because they are elected by the people. So here these people, the real executives, becomes the powerful part of the executive, while president will become the dignified part of the executive. But the responsibility will be more with the real executive, because these people are only ceremonial. What these people say, they just follow. The nominal executive will be follow. Though they are head of the state, president is called as head of the state, they are the activities or the decision taken by the nominal executive are held responsible by the real executive, because the president follows whatever the real executive says. So I think you are clear with the parliamentary form of government. And we are coming to the real executive. Real executives are formed by the party, that is called as majority party rule. The party whichever party wins the election and forms the government as a major party, it may be a single party or it may be a coalition party also, whichever forms the majority in the parliament, they are going to become the real executive. And even the both nominal executive and real executive should be held collectively responsible for the legislature. They can't go behind the legislature without bringing notice to the legislature, and whatever the membership that has to minister has to process, the membership, their qualifications or their process or the procedures for the election are very held in, are the main feature of this parliamentary form of government. And the leadership, in case of central government, the prime minister acts as a leader of the house, and in case of assembly, that means state, chief minister acts as a leader of the house. So parliamentary form speaks about the leadership of the house, and also the dissolution means once in 5 years the entire house or the lower house, what we call as Lok Sabha or assembly in case of states, gets dissolved once in 5 years. So these are the features that a parliamentary form of government should possess. I think you are clear with the parliamentary form of government. And if you observe this parliamentary form of government, the more power is vested with real executive, and the real executive leadership is taken by the leader of the house, that is prime minister or chief minister. So to put it in simple words, it is also called as parliamentary form of government is also called as prime ministerial form of government, because the president is just a nominal executive who is abided by the advice, yet an advice of the real executive. The real executive leader is the prime minister, who is also called as the leader of the house. So he is called as, this form of government is also called as prime ministerial form of government. I think you're clear with this part. Let's move on to the next salient feature of the Indian Constitution.